संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमो भगवते संबुद्धाय। Today is the birthday of Bhagavan Buddha. He was born almost 2500 years ago in 560 BC. He lived for 80 years. He preached a religion which was at once the essence of Vedanta and also was taught in the languages of people which people could understand. He removed all obstacles of caste, gender or race to enter into his religion of reason, contemplation, compassion and service. He lived what he preached and thus became the living God, the avatar of the age. His teachings were accepted more by the young than by the old. They carried the message of their master to the ends of the earth and beyond it. His was the first missionary religion of the world. It spread with a message of peace, goodwill and harmony towards all people's cultures and religions. In a way, it proved the way for the revival of Vedanta in India through a series of great acharyas who followed him, like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, etc. With the advent of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda, a global revolution in religious thinking and practice has been set in motion since the last 1.5 centuries. According to Swami Vivekananda, this is going to unfold a glorious religious flowering all over the world during the next 1500 years. The world is going to adopt a religion of harmony and mutual help and service. This is going to be a synthesis of science and spirituality. Come, now let us listen to the important aspects of Buddha's life and message. Buddha's birth. Buddha's birth has been described in wonderful details in several books, both by the Easterners and the Westerners. So we quote from some of the famous books about Buddha, like Gospel of Buddha by Paul Carus and the Indian authors. So Shuddhodana was the Shakya king of Kapilavastu, descended from Ikshvaku Vamsha, to which Ramchandra belonged. We must know historically, though our Puranas do not mention the age, we can easily fix that Ramchandra is the highest, is the first incarnation historically we have in our Puranas, and followed by Sri Krishna. Then after Sri Krishna, maybe after 2000 years is Buddha. Then after Buddha 2000 years is Jesus. Then after Jesus we have Muhammad after 600 years of Jesus. Then after Jesus we get so many, the famous of them being Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and others. And in our latest age, Sri Ramakrishna is there in the line of avatars. This Shuddhodana was the Shakya king of Kapilavastu. Kapilavastu was a small kingdom, descended from Ikshvaku Vamsha, and he belonged to the Gautama Gotra. Gautama Gotra, Gautama is the Rishi from which Gautama is the Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya is Kapila and Gautama is Nyaya. Nyaya Vaisheshika belongs to Gautama, one of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy. So this Gautama may be another Gautama earlier to him from the Vedic time. So this Gautama Gotra is continuing even today. And Siddhartha and his father Shuddhodana, they belong to this Gautama Gotra. That is why Siddhartha was also called the Gautama. And later on when he becomes a Buddha also, he is called Gautama the Buddha. The Gotra names continues, Gautama Gotra. His wife, that is wife of Shuddhodana, father of Siddhartha, his wife Maya Devi was beautiful, pure in mind and free from worldly desires. When she conceived, she wanted to visit her parents. She was on the way in the forest of Lumbini, where the child Siddhartha was born. It is said, without any labor pain whatsoever. The king observed many auspicious signs all around when Siddhartha was born. Therefore, he invited a great Rishi, Rishi Asita, to interpret the signs that occurred during the birth of Buddha. And there were several signs, auspicious signs on his body itself. So this Rishi Asita was asked to interpret the signs. Then Asita said, this Siddhartha is not going to worship Brahma, but he will be himself worshipped. And all the great people are going to forget about worshipping Brahma or other gods. They are going to worship this child itself in future. Secondly, he said, this child will bring deliverance to the suffering humanity in the world everywhere. Thirdly, he said, the king of the law, that means Dharma, the king of Dharma has come forth to rescue from bondage all the poor, the miserable and the helpless in this world. Therefore, the parents named the child Siddhartha. That means one who has achieved his purpose. So Siddhartha was the name of Gautama the Buddha. According to Buddha Charita, Buddha Charita is a famous biography in Sanskrit on Bhagavan Buddha. It is written by one famous old poet, Ashwaghosha. So Ashwaghosha writes, the Asita is telling in that Buddha Charita, Vihaya Rajyam Vishayeshu Anastha Tivrai Prayatnaihi Adhigamya Tattvam Jagatyayam Mohatamo Nihantum Jvalishyati Jnanamayo hi Suryaha. So the Buddha Charita tells, being unattached to sense of enjoyments, this little child, giving up his rulership, realizing the highest spiritual truth, he will move about, removing the darkness of delusion of everyone. So this was the prediction of this future of this little child. After a while, maybe after a few months, Maya Devi passed away, his mother, as if she had accomplished the only purpose for which she was born, that of giving the Buddha to the world. Her younger sister, called Gautami Prajapati, she was also called Kisa Gautami. So the Gautami Prajapati took charge of the child. Siddhartha soon grew in body and mind, in truthfulness and in love. His boyhood was very wonderful. Siddhartha was full of meditation by nature and very tender in his feelings. So he grew up to the marriageable age. As he grew up to be a youth, father wanted him to select a wife. That was the custom among the kings. So the bridegroom would select his wife among the many brides. So several kings around were all informed that Siddhartha is going to select a wife for himself. So the kings whose daughters were to be given in marriage wanted to test Siddhartha's power, physical and mental. So the kings also wanted to have a test of their future son-in-law. So they set him certain challenges. He was challenged to tame a wild horse. So all the kings combined together. They brought one of the wildest horses that was available. So they brought the wildest horse with bridles and stirrups. Bridle, the rope by which you control, and then stirrups, the legs into which you put and then sit upon it. These two are absolutely necessary for even a trained horse also. Without a stirrup and a bridle, you cannot ride. So when the untrained, a wild horse was brought with bridles and stirrups, and Siddhartha was asked to ride this and tame this wild horse. Then Siddhartha said, why this bridle and then this stirrup? Remove them also. That is absolutely no hold. No other person could dare to go on the back of a horse, untrained, wild, without stirrup and without bridle. He said, remove them. Then he just jumped upon his back, and the wild horse started running, and it wanted to throw him off and show its power. It went into the jungle, it just climbed up the hills, jumped into the ditches, but Siddhartha could not be brought down. So the horse got absolutely tired. Then it came back gasping for breath. After almost a few hours, the horse had been trained and it had been brought under control completely. Kings wondered, what is this man? Without a stirrup and without a bridle, he trains up a wild horse. So first examination, he passed with credit. Then they put a target for arrow shooting. They put a arrow target, what you call the bullseye, 100 meters away. Those of you who have seen even now in the northeast, this arrow shooting is there. It is a village game. So lot of villagers, they shoot, say maybe 20 meters or 25 meters or maximum 30 meters. So they set 100 meters to shoot the bullseye. Then Siddhartha asked, what is the distance you have set? They said 100 meters. Put it 1000 meters, he said. Then they gasped, what is this 1000 meters? No arrow can go in against the blowing wind. The arrow will itself fall on the way. How is he going to shoot? When it was put, he shot at the bullseye again and again without missing. The whole kings were astonished at the power of his hand and the dexterity of his arrow shooting. They all accepted he is the right person to marry our daughters. Then the princesses came in a procession. There were a number of kings and number of princesses who were eager to marry him. Then they were all asked to come in a line. The idea was they would all come in front of with Siddhartha. He would look at them, they would look at him, and then as an award of participation, he would give one ornament to them. So he has a number of ornaments with him. Then all the princesses came in a procession to be selected by him. None could raise her eyes to look into his piercing eyes. His eyes were so pure, so sharp, so full of infinite knowledge, as if he was gazing into the infinity, gazing into the heart of everybody. Nobody dared to look into his eyes. All the girls, the princesses, they cast down their eyes, walked in front of him. When they came in front of him, they were looking down, perhaps at their own feet. Then Siddhartha gave them ornament. You take this and go. 1, 2, 3. All the princesses cleared. No one even looked at him. So he also did not bother to look at them. Then all went away. At last came one princess. She was Yashodhara, the princess of Koli. This girl, from a distance itself, she was staring at him. When others were afraid of even looking, glancing at him, this girl was staring at him from a distance. She came straight in front of him, looked into his eyes straight, and then at that time Siddhartha was confused because there was no ornament to give her. Ornaments were exhausted. She would not leave him. He was confused and he was sitting silent. Then Yashodhara herself went forward and asked, "Where is my ornament?" Then he was further confused what to do. Then he took out the necklace from his own neck and handed it over to her. And the way he gave it, and the way she received it, and the way both of them looked at one another, all the king, his father, and all the people assembled there, they all knew that he has accepted Yashodhara to be his bride. So Yashodhara was married to Siddhartha. They got a son before long. The son was named Rahul. The king was very happy to get a future successor whom he thought would be his future successor. We shall see what will happen in the future. So king was very happy. He got a grandson in Rahul. Then Siddhartha the king was always afraid because the Rishi Asita had told that he is going to renounce the world and then he is going to preach a religion of harmony, religion of peace, religion of service. So he did not want his son to renounce and go away. He had given another option also. Either he will become one of the biggest emperors or he will become an all-renouncing monk and who will bring succor in the spiritual world to everyone. So the king had ordered all the luxuries to be kept around Siddhartha always. He should not know that there is misery in the world at all. People renounce the world when they see the misery. That is how we see all the great people. When they see the misery of the world, they are moved. So they give up their luxuries, their palaces, their kingdoms, and then they go to serve people. This is what had happened earlier in history. So his father Shuddhodana knew it. Therefore he had ordered no misery should be shown to Siddhartha. Everywhere, wherever he goes, there must be only pleasure, joy, music, dance. So that was how he was surrounded, and no misery to be shown to him anywhere. But one day, Siddhartha, though he was surrounded by all these luxuries and merriment around, one day he called his charioteer Channa. So this Channa is a very great character in Siddhartha's life. So he called Channa, "Come Channa, let us both go." So he go out of the palace and I want to see my kingdom. So Channa is only a charioteer, very wise charioteer. So he said, anyway, the young prince has already been surrounded by all the luxuries. So let him go for a few hours and see the kingdom also. As far as possible, I will take him through the main roads where all best things are there. As we show our foreign visitors, we take them to the main roads and then show this is what India is. Real India is not in the main roads. It is in the rural area. Nobody sees it. Everybody praises India when they go away. So similarly, he also thought, let me take him through the main roads and let him see some nice things and come. So Channa the charioteer got into the chariot and Siddhartha followed him. Unfortunately for them, first thing Siddhartha met on the way was an old man with white hairs, bent body, wrinkled skin, and sorrowful in his whole demeanor. He was sorrow personified, as it were. Siddhartha was astounded, was wonderstruck. He had never seen an old man like that. And he asked Channa, "What is this creature?" Then Channa said, "This is an old man. All of us are going to become old like this. We will not be young always. You are young. I am already going towards the old. He has gone much beyond us. So he is looking like that. All of us will look like him when he grow to that age." When Channa said this, Siddhartha sighed and he almost wept and said, "What joy can men take in their life when they know they must soon wither away like this? Everyone has to become like this. Knowing this one, how can people have any joy at all? Suppose you are, we have been condemned to hanging. God forbid. So somebody has been condemned to hanging. Can he enjoy any day, any best thing, whatever can be given to him? One day I am going to be hanged. So why I should eat this one? Why I should enjoy this one? He will never enjoy any enjoyment when once he is sure that his days are limited. So that is what Siddhartha said. When everybody knows that he has to become old like this and wither away, how can they enjoy their life? So it is the same thing we read in our Upanishads also. When Nachiketa was given all the joys of the world, when he asked for the knowledge of Atman, Yama wanted to see whether he is really interested in Atman or whether some desire for the world is there. So he told him, why do you ask this about Atman, which is so difficult to know? Deveratrapi vichikitsam kila. Devatas also asked about this question and they could not understand when it was taught. Atman is very difficult to understand, much difficult to experience. Give up that one. I will give you kingdom, I will give you good damsels, I will give you all enjoyments in this earth, I will give you chariots, I will give you horses, I will give you elephants, I will give you all the wealth in the world, I will give you any length of years you want to live. He said, no. What did he say? He says, to Abhidhyayan varnarati pramodan Jiryan martyaha kwadastha prajanan Abhidhyayan varnarati pramodan Atidirghe jivite korameta. Nachiketa said, when we know that all these joys are going to land him into a decrepit state of old age and death, who will enjoy this life? I want to know about the Atman alone. Same thing Siddhartha said. How can people enjoy this life when it is going to be followed by old age, decrepitness and death? Then they went further anyway. Channa would not keep him there for long. He took him further up. Anyway, let this bad scene go. Let us go for a good scene. Unfortunately for them, next man who came on the road was a sick man, gasping for breath, disfigured and groaning. Siddhartha asked, Channa, what is this creature? So groaning, disfigured and gasping for breath? Then Channa said, this is sickness, this is decrepitness, this comes with old age, this comes with to everyone. Everyone becomes old and suffers like this with old age diseases, if not or other serious diseases. Siddhartha again sighed. Then Channa hurried him further away from there. And his unfortunate situation became worst when they met a dead body on the way. Dead body was being carried. Ram Ram kaho, Ram Ram kaho, Ram Nam kaho. So they were all taking the name of Ram. Then Siddhartha asked, what is this? They are crying Ram Ram, and then they are attacking this man who is lying down on on a cot which they are carrying on their shoulders. Then he said, this is called death. When the body will be there will be no more life in it. So the body has to be either buried or cremated, and it has to be dispensed with. You can't have it for any more, even a day in your house. All have to die one day, leaving family and friends behind. Channa replied. Siddhartha sighed very, very heavily and loudly spoke. O worldly men, how fatal is your delusion that you live on carelessly when you are going to dust like this. So he could not keep up his enthusiasm to go any further. He said, Channa, let us go back. We have seen enough of this world. So there is worst thing in the life of man about which he has to think seriously. He has to find a solution. This is a problem of everyone. And why should everybody face this problem without trying to overcome this one? If possible, get out of take all of the people out of these problems. Siddhartha came back full of sorrow. His wife asked him the reason, and he replied, everything changes. Men grow old, men grow sick, and men at last die. I don't see any cause for zest in life. They had never seen him lose his zest in life. Always he would be dancing and joining their merriment. After all this, he became so serious, he had lost all zest in life. Then he thought of this great renunciation. What is the use of living this life? If we have to live at all, we must try to fight this sickness, fight this old age, fight this death. We must go beyond this death. We must find immortality. I must find a way for that. That was the thinking that was going on. Therefore, Siddhartha did not sleep at all. He meditated and meditated. A great compassion to the humanity seized his heart. How I can remove this misery of old age, decrepitness, and death, and take people to immortality. So it was in his heart. At that time, he had a divine vision. A divine being came in the form of a monk, a Shramana. So the Shramana told Siddhartha, and Siddhartha told Shramana, my father says I should enjoy the world because I am too young to lead a religious life. He is telling the Shramana, he is already thinking in the mind, I must give up this type of enjoyment, I must struggle hard in my life to find out a path to immortality, to nirvana. So he was thinking, at that time the Shramana appears in the vision. So he is telling the Shramana, my father says I should enjoy the world because I am too young to live a religious life. Then Shramana, who is the Devata, he says, now indeed is the time when you are young to seek real religion. Go out, Siddhartha, accomplish your purpose. You are the Bodhisattva, the Buddha elect. You are destined to enlighten the world. In Buddhism, 3 stages are there for great people to become Buddha. Buddha believed that everyone can attain to Buddhahood. Buddhahood is the last. So before becoming a Buddha, one becomes a all-loving avatara. He is called the Bodhisattva. Then before becoming a Bodhisattva, he becomes an Arhat. Arhat means a man qualified for Bodhisattvahood. Then Bodhisattva enters into Buddhahood. Then Buddha never more comes. He enters into Nirvana. So this is the time for you to go and accomplish your purpose and become a Buddha. So the Shramana disappeared. Then as soon as the Deva vanished, Siddhartha came back with a resolve to renounce. Then he had a last look at his wife and his beloved child, Rahul, and he shed tears of compassion. Compassion for not for himself, compassion for Yashodhara. So in the Buddha Charita he says, it is not I that I am renouncing, it is Yashodhara's sacrifice that is going to take place now. She is the real renouncer. So I am going in search of truth. I have nothing to worry. But she is not going in search of truth. But yet she is losing her greatest jewel in her life. So for her, he had great compassion. And the child, then he hurried out to the gates, mounted on the chariot. Of course, charioteer was Channa, and they came out. So when he came out, he cut his hair, cast away his crown, his royal robes and ornaments, and sent back Channa to report to the king that his son had renounced the world. So when Siddhartha tells Channa, you go back and tell me, now you leave me, they had already crossed a long distance towards the Bimbisara's kingdom. They had come out of their Kapilavastu, and he is telling charioteer Channa, you go back and tell my father that I have renounced the world in search of truth. Yadapi syat asamaye yato vanamasam asaviti akale nasti dharmasya jivite chanchale sati. My father may tell you, why did he leave the world? He should have renounced when he becomes old. Now is the time for enjoyment. Now he giving up all enjoyment. He has gone away. He did not do the dharma. Then you tell him, Jivite chanchale sati. Life is unpredictable. You may live for 50 years or you may pass away tomorrow morning also. Jivite chanchale sati. When the unpredictability is in life, you should not put off your resolve to find out the truth. Therefore, he has left everything. But he has gone with a real hero's resolve. You tell him, Shipram yeshyati va kritva jara mrityum kshayankila. He will conquer the old age and death very quickly and will come back with the message to everyone to cross over old age and death. Akritartho niralambo nidhanam yasyati tiva. If he cannot achieve this one, he will not return like a coward. He will die struggling to get this truth. His whole life will be a struggle to find the real panacea for death and old age. You tell my father. So Channa comes back. Then all the people ask him, what about Siddhartha? He says, you see, he went away. I left him there and came. He said, you are the fellow culprit. Why did you take him out? You should have informed us. When he wanted to go away, you should have informed us. We would have stopped him here. Why did you take him out? Then Channa tells them, not I, nor the horse that took the chariot. It was gods themselves that took away the Siddhartha. How? Because horse sped like wind. It would not make a little sound. His hoofs did not make any sound. It did not neigh even once. Horses always neigh, make such a big sound. All the people in this locality will get up. It did not make a single sound. The Devatas saw to it that there was no sound of his hoof or his neighing. And then when we went to the gates of the fort, which should be locked, and your sentries must be there, the gates were ajar, open. And there was not a single sentry in your kingdom. What happened to all your kingdom? The gods had removed all of them, and no one was awake. When Siddhartha wanted ochre robe, then it came from the heaven, descended from heaven. He put on the ochre robe. He took out his crown, and the crown was taken away by the gods. No crown is there anywhere on the earth. His crown has been taken away by the Devas. All became silent. There was no reply. Then Siddhartha enters the next kingdom, where Bimbisara, who was the friend of his father, he was the king. It was Rajagriha. So Rajagriha kingdom, there was a big commotion because everyone knew that Siddhartha was the son of Shuddhodana, the next kingdom. Then, in the meanwhile, Bimbisara saw that his friend's son has come here to become a monk. He has cut off his hair and wearing a saffron cloth. Then Bimbisara tell him, Isi shaknoti jirna kalu dharma maptum kamopabhogeshu agatit jarayaha atascha yuna kathayanti kaman madhyasya vittam sthavirasya dharmam. Usual advice given by an old man. So Bimbisara told him, why did you give up the kingdom now when you are young? They say, all the wise people say, Sakto shaknoti jirna kalu dharma maptum. When a man becomes old, he should go in search of dharma, in search of God. Why? Kamopabhogeshu agatir jarayaha. In old age, one does not desire for sense enjoyments. All the senses have become old and decrepit. So he doesn't have any desire for sense enjoyments. Naturally, he should think about God. Therefore, one should become old to become a seeker of truth. Atascha, therefore, Yuna Katayanti Kaman. For young people, enjoyment of the world is advised. Madhyasya Vittam. In the middle age, you must earn money because without money you cannot get enjoyment. So up to middle age, go on earning and then enjoying. Then Sthavirasya Dharmam. When you become old, go in search of God. So he gives the usual advice. In the meanwhile, Shuddhodana also sends a message when he comes to know that he is going towards the Bimbisaras. So he had sent a message to Siddhartha telling him, what is this? Should you go to the jungle only to find God? Can he not be found in the towns and cities? Nachaisha dharmo vane eva siddha. It should be got only by going into the jungle. It is not nowhere it is written. Purepi siddhir nihita yatina. For people who want to become rishis, who want to become searchers, the people who want to search truth, they can do it. Even purepi siddhihi, they can get siddhi even being in the towns. Buddhischa yatnascha nimittamatra vanancha lingancha biru chinnam. He that leaves this town and runs away, instead of struggling for truth, even where he stays, he is only a coward. So, Siddhartha already has sent the word. I am not a coward. I will achieve success. I will fight till the end. I will come as a victorious man, or you will not find me at all coming back like a coward returning from the war without vanquishing the enemy. Like the Rajput, they used to take an oath when they would go to war. Either I will come as a warrior who has got victory in his pocket, or you will see only my dead body, not a living person. So that was he has already sent this message, so he did not bother. So he went further. Where did he go? In search of dharma, in search of the truth, which will take one to immortality. So the search started. He went to several teachers. He went to one teacher called Arada and his companion Udraka. So they taught him the self. The self is that which is inside the body and the mind, which goes on transmigration from birth after birth. The self is the thing that does good and bad things, acquires punya and papa, etc., etc. Then Siddhartha was not pleased. So such a self I don't accept. Then he went to ritualists, who were sacrificing animals after animals in large numbers. He said, the only sacrifice of lobha, covetousness, and kama, lust, can free a man from passions and make him an enlightened man. This is the true sacrifice, not the sacrifice of animals. Therefore, he did not relish the ritualism also. Then he comes to a village called Uruvilla. Uruvilla village. Met there 5 more bhikshus. Bhikshus are equivalent to what we call as monks now. So these 5 bhikshus, renouncing everything, they were practicing austerity. What austerity? Not to take any food at all, very little food in a day. So just austerities of the extreme kind. He also joined them. They 5 bhikshus and he became the 6th one. So he practiced austerities for 6 full years. His body became dried up, but he was anywhere near enlightenment. He found himself so weak, he could not even meditate. So Siddhartha, he said, is this the way for real enlightenment? Can mere austerities, drying up the body, through which you make the body as well as the mind weak, can it take you to illumination? Sharira pida yadiha dharmaha, sukham sharirasya bhavati adharmaha, dharmena chapnoti sukham paratra, tasmad adharmam palatiha dharma. The people they were telling, you see, to enjoy in this world is adharma. So to suffer in this world is the real dharma. Then he asked the question, if suffering is the only dharma, When you go to the other world, after doing dharma here with punya, you go and enjoy there only. So when enjoyments are given in the heaven for doing dharma here, then this dharma is giving you adharma there. To enjoy is to adharma, according to you. So can dharma give you adharma? That is not possible. Your philosophy is wrong. So austerity is not the path. Then he went for bathing after arguing with them. Then when he went for bathing, he fell down unconscious. He was so weak, such a royal body. So Siddhartha, who could tame the wild horse, who could shoot the target at 1000 meters away, such a young man, had become reduced to only bones and flesh, bones and skin. He fell down unconscious. So when he got up, so he thought very seriously, no, this is not the path. This extreme austerity is not the path, and extreme luxury I was in was not also the path. So it must be a Madhya Pantha, the middle point, the path of middleness. So he said, I must take the Madhya Pantha, neither austerity nor luxury. Whatever body needs, I must feed it with that, then merge myself in deep meditation to arrive at the real truth. So he thought I should take at least some good food. As soon as he thought, the great Rishi then immediately appeared. One cowherd maid, her name was Sujata. She is famous in Buddhist history, Sujata. So she was also called Nanda in some books. So Sujata is the famous name. So this Sujata immediately came to him and said, Sir, I understand your thoughts, that you are thinking of breaking your austerity and take to Madhya Pantha, the middle path. I approve. I will go. I have got 100 cows in my house. I will bring you the best payasam made out of it. You take that one and break your austerities and then continue your middle path. She ran to her home. So the author of his life, he says, how did she prepare payasa for Buddha to break his 6 years of austerity? So in a poetic way, she went and then milked all the 100 cows, took all the milk and made 10 cows drink all this milk. Instead of water, they drank all that milk. Then afterwards, she milked those 10 cows. She got the essence of that 100 cows through these 10 cows. She fed all those 10 cows milk again to one cow, which was the best she had. Then that cow drank this. She milked that cow, and out of that she prepared the payasam. She brought it by evening. The whole recipe was ready. She brought it and gave to Buddha. It was dark. The moon was rising. It was a Purnima day. Then Buddha was taking his last oath. So when she came with the payasam, he thanked her and then took all the payasam, and then he said, Ihasane shushyatu me shariram tvagasthimaamsam palayancha yatu aprapya bodhim shatakalpa durlabham naivasanat kayamita chalishyati. Now I have taken this wonderful payasam this Sujata has offered, but this night I am going to sit for meditation with the energy that I get from this payasam, the most sacred payasam she has given. But in this night I must get enlightenment, or until I get the entire enlightenment, I will not get up from this pose of sitting. Ihasane shushyati me shariram. This body will dry up, but it will not get up until illumination comes to it. That was the resolve we made. Aprapya bodhim shatakalpa durlabham. Even if it takes thousands of years to get bodhi, the real enlightenment, I will not get up this time. This time I must achieve or die in the attempt. Naivasanat kayam mitaha chalishyati. This body shall not move without enlightenment. So when he sat like that, the whole world trembled. The world of gods trembled. Then He had to realize the highest truth. He sat under the Bodhi tree there at Uruvilla. Then, when he was meditating deep and deep and deep, this Mara is another name for Kama. The Kama Deva, he came with all temptations. He tempted him with all sorts of enticements, as the Kama usually does, to disturb all the rishis. But Siddhartha could not be moved. He was steady in his meditation, going deeper and deeper. Then he lured him with the wealth of the whole world, women of the whole world, but he would not be moved. And Siddhartha remained steady. And then Mara was at last defeated. He ran away from there. Then Siddhartha realized the highest truth, which he called later on Nirvana. Nirvana is Nirvapana, extinguishing all the desires. There is no desire at all for the Atman. God does not have any desire. Desire is only for the imperfect people. Everything is achieved. Whatever you want, it is already there. So why should you desire? Everything is yours. Atman contains everything. God contains everything. They don't have to desire. Whoever desires, that means he is imperfect. He doesn't have that particular thing, so he desires. When you have a thing, you don't desire it. What you desire, you don't have. So, a perfect man has no desire at all. That is exactly what Bhagavad Gita says. Bhagavad Gita gives the Sthita Prajna Lakshana, a Brahmajnani. What is the exact characteristic of a man who knows what? God? Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. He who has renounced desires from the very mind, he is the realizer of God. A God realized person has no desire at all because all desires have been fulfilled. He is a fulfilled, self-fulfilled man. So Siddhartha became a self-fulfilled man. All desires left him once and for all. So he realized the four truths for which he was hunting. What are these four truths? Sorrow exists. That is true. First of all, if you want to diagnose, if you want to cure a disease, you must diagnose the disease. What is this disease that is bringing this old age and death, everything? It is because we acquire a body. We assume a body. We are infinite Atman, full of infinite bliss and joy, infinite immortal life, infinite knowledge and power. Everything is in us. We forget our real nature and out of ignorance come and enter into a body and think we are the body. This ignorance is the cause by which we assume a body. When you assume a body, body becomes young, middle age, old age, decrepit, suffering, then death. They follow. Why not put an end here itself? Why do you want to acquire a body? Already all the joys that you have already is in you. Know yourself. Know thyself. You get out of all the trouble. So he first truth he saw was sorrow exists in birth, in growth, in death, in union and separation, which are all part and parcel of physical body. So we assume this physical body. There is a cause of suffering for the sorrow. Why do you assume a physical body? Because we are after sense enjoyment. We want this enjoyment, we want that enjoyment. When you enjoy one thing, the other enjoyment, desire for other enjoyment increase in geometrical proportion. In arithmetical proportion, we satisfy your desire. By the time you satisfy one desire, 10 desires have arisen. So 1 to 10. So by the time we enjoy 10 enjoyments in this life, we will have multiplied 1000 desires. So these desires will bring you back again. This is called in Buddhism Trishna, Tanha. Tanha is the unquenchable desire for sense pleasures, which cannot be quenched by merely enjoying it. You have to remove this desire for sense pleasure by realizing your own real self. So this is the second truth. There is sorrow in this world, diagnosis. And there is a cause for this sorrow. That is the Trishna, the thirst for sense enjoyments and selfish enjoyments. And So sorrow is there and the cause for sorrow is found out. Can the sorrow go? Is there a way? There is a cessation of sorrow. It's possible. Third truth. The third truth is there is a cessation of sorrow. He that controls one's mind, gives up the desires, becomes free from sorrow. So this is the third truth. There is the eightfold path for getting this knowledge. So this is the fourth truth. There is sorrow and the cause for sorrow is Trishna, and this there is a cessation for this Trishna. Trishna can be overcome. Desire for sense enjoyment can be overcome by realizing one's own self. Fourth truth is how to realize this. There are 8 great spiritual disciplines which you undergo. You will arrive at nirvana, your own self-illumination. What are these 8 truths? This is called the Ashtanga, eightfold path. So, this eightfold path is comprehension, right comprehension. That is Samyak Jnana. Right resolution, Samyak Sankalpa. Right speech, right walk, Samyak walk. Then right acts, Samyak Karma. Then right livelihood, Samyak Sadvritti. And right efforts, Samyak Sadhana. Right thoughts, Sadbhavana. And right peaceful mind, Samadhi. So, by following the path of Jnana, Samyak Sankalpa, Samyak Vak, Samyak Karma, Sadvritti, Sat Sadhana, Sadbhavana, and Samadhi, eightfold path, one arrives at this real illumination, which is called Nirvana, which is the real Dharma. Essence of Dharma is one should realize one is divine, one is immortal, one is full of infinite life, one is full of infinite fearlessness and freedom, one is full of joy and love. This is one's nature. One should realize this. This is Dharma, he said. Then he was filled with joy. I have found out the real Dharma for the world. If they follow this eightfold path, everyone can cross over all these difficulties of life. This is the truth. This is the real religion. This can be practiced when egotism is given up. He will not, that such a person will not harm anyone, and he becomes a Buddha. This was his realization. So after realizing this one, he was filled with so much of joy. Every morning, so he would be sitting in joy. Whole night he would be sitting in joy. 49 days went up. 7 weeks. He would not move out of that Bodhi tree. He is just enjoying this joy of his self-illumination. Then Brahma saw from above. What is this? He went to the world to bring this message to everyone. So he is himself enjoying it. So what the Buddha was thinking, you see how much difficulty I had to undergo. I had to go through all the philosophies, the wrong philosophies. I had to reject them. Then 6 years, which dried up my body to only a skeleton and skin. I had to undergo that. Afterwards, I had to take a resolve. I will die, I will resolve. And then that lady came and gave me some payasam. Then only I could realize this. So much of austerity who will undergo? Even if I tell them this is the path, but you have to undergo austerities to realize this truth. Who will undergo this? There is nobody here capable of receiving this message. Let me not go and give this message to anybody at all. That is how he was simply enjoying himself, was not moving out at all. Then Brahma came and salutes him and tells him, please, there are some people who may not be as powerful or as capable as you are, but next grade sadhakas are there, aspirants are there. You go to Varanasi. There, you see, there is a place called Mrigavana, the deer park. So there, 5 bhikshus are there who were there with you. When you took that payasam, they said, no, he has become a bhogi. He has become an enjoyer of life. He is no more an austere sadhu. We will leave him. So they have gone away. But they are continuing their penance there. They are struggling to get illumination. If you go and tell them, they will become your first disciples. Then Siddhartha said, all right, at least 5 people are there. Let me go and give him a message. Then he comes to them. Those 5 people are sitting there at Brigavana. From a distance they see Siddhartha was become Buddha now, shining with the knowledge. So he is walking with the gait of an emperor. So he is walking with the gait of a spiritual realized soul, a Brahmajnani. So he is going to them. From a distance, all these 5 people saw. Oh, it is the same Siddhartha who gave up his austerities, who had gone for enjoyment of the world by taking the payasam from that Sujata. Let us not honor him. When he comes, we shall not express our reverence to him by calling him Bhante. Bhante means, oh revered sir. So in Pali, so a revered sir is called Bhante. We shall not address him as Bhante. Another fellow says, all right, we shall not address him Bhante. Another fellow, we shall not get up at all. When he comes, we will be sitting like this only. We shall not show him any respect. Third man says, we shall not bring him any water to wash his feet. We shall not show him any respect. He has fallen. But he is coming to us to make us again to his disciples. So they were just looking at him. Then Buddha approaches them. As he comes nearer and nearer, these 3 fellows who said they would not address him as Bhante, they shout, Bhante, please come. So as soon as he comes near, then all of them stand up, show him reverence. And when he comes near, they bring water and wash his feet. You cannot resist the power of a Brahmajnani, a man who knows God. So Buddha accepts them as his disciples. Then he teaches them. Tathagata teaches the middle path, he tells them. You see, austerity is not the path, nor luxury. It is the middle path, the path of yoga. So neither austerities nor luxury. By mere austerities, unhealthy minds, bad karma and bondage come. Therefore, don't go for austerities. Keep the body healthy and fit. This is your duty. Then give up selfishness. Then you will experience the truth, highest truth. This highest truth will serve you, save you from all misery. Truth will make you immortal. So these 5 people, they became his disciples. The best of them was one Kaundinya. So the Kaundinya immediately, as he received the message from Buddha, he became highly illumined. So he became an Arhat. So he became an Arhat. When the first disciple became the Arhat, the teaching of Buddha had started and started bearing fruit. So the Devatas danced in joy. They said, Tathagata has set the wheel of Dharma rolling. None can ever turn it back now. The whole world is going to come his way. Kingdom of truth will spread all over the world. Dharma, goodwill, peace will reign in the world. So one after another, many people came and joined the Buddha. So Buddha had hundreds and hundreds of people every day coming and receiving his message. So many of them became monks and many of them remained householders. Buddha advised his monastics. So he addressed his monastics saying, be like brothers, one in love, one in holiness, and one in zeal for truth. Spread the doctrine so that all can enter the kingdom of righteousness, dharma. Then Kaundinya understood well and said, I believe in Buddha, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I believe in the Sangha, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. And in this Dharma, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. So the first disciple, all of them later on, started telling this called the Triratna. Triratna of Buddhism. 3 best vows of a Buddhist is, I will take refuge under Buddha, I take refuge under his Dharma, I take refuge under his Sangha. So, as soon as this message spread, rich and poor, all people, they were all only suffering in this world. So one of the richest men in Kashi, he came to him. He was called Yasha. So he was in love with another one girl. She was also equally beautiful, equally rich. They were about to marry one another. But when they heard the message of Buddha, they were inspired to go to Buddha and embraced monasticism. They both came. Then Yasha came, and then his father also came. All of them embraced Buddhism. When Yasha, the doyen of youth in the Varanasi, became a monk, all other young people also started coming to him. When Yasha has taken to monastic life, we shall also follow. Hundreds and hundreds of young people came, both men and women. First, Buddha did not initiate women into monasticism. Only men he initiated. Then Bimbisara, the king himself, came. He also wanted to embrace Buddhism. Then Buddha gave him a Gerua cloth. He gave him saffron cloth. He became converted to Buddhism. Then Buddha thought, let me go to Kapilavastu, my own place. There many people may be intending to embrace my religion. He goes to Kapilavastu. Kapilavastu is his father's kingdom. Father is ruling. His wife Yashodhara is there. His foster mother Kisa Gautami is there. Buddha went straight into Kapilavastu. Then king found that he is begging in the street. Then king sent message to his son, you are a king, you should not beg in the street. Kings do not beg. Then Buddha sent a reply to his message. Yes, kings do not beg. I am not a king. I am a Buddha. Buddhas beg. So I am a Buddha, I will beg. And you are a king, you need not beg. Then king could not say anything. Then Buddha goes there nearby, under a Bodhi tree. He sits down. All hundreds of people come and sit. And Buddha starts speaking his message. His message was like mesmerism. People could not move. They were all listening for hours together. Then Shuddhodana, his father, was expecting his son to come and meet him in the palace. But he is going on preaching for hours together. He sent his minister, go and tell my son, I am eager to meet him. So you go and meet him. Then minister goes. As soon as he hears a few words of Siddhartha, he sits down there. He also does not move at all. So a half an hour gone, he does not come back. Then the king saw, what is this? He sent his commander-in-chief, go, bring that minister as well as that Siddhartha. This commander comes and hears a few words. He also is charmed. He sits down there, does not come out. Then the Shuddhodana thought, what is this? Nobody is coming. Let me myself go and see. After all, he is my son only. Let me go and tell him, come to the palace. He went there. So Buddha is preaching. Thousands are sitting there, mesmerized. So he was just looking at him. He also got into that mesmerism. But inside he was thinking, no, I will not get into this spell. I will go. After all, he is my son. I will not salute him. So, but he was slowly marching towards him, drawn by that mesmeric spell. When he went near, he stumbled, fell at feet of Siddhartha. Without knowing, he did the Sartanga Pranam to him. Siddhartha lifted him up. The touch of Siddhartha gave him enlightenment. Then Shuddhodana was also converted to his son's religion. So later on, when he passed away, then Buddha himself took his father on his lap and his father gave up his body. So father was converted. Then he did not go to, first of all he was going on preaching. Then somebody went to Yashodhara. She was in her palace. Somebody said, you see, don't you go and see your husband? Thousands and thousands are being mesmerized by his teaching. Why don't you go and meet him there? Yashodhara said, what? Me to go and meet? If he knows who I am and what I have done in his life, he will come here. I will not go. So she was not only a princess in a physical world, she was princess of the spiritual world also. So she had the temerity to say, if he will come to this palace, I don't have to go. And Buddha himself walked into Yashodhara's presence. Then he greeted her, and then she saluted him. And then, in the meanwhile, her son Rahul came. Rahul was about 13 or 14-year-old, good-looking boy, looking just like his father. Then Yashodhara points out to Buddha and tells her son, Rahul, this is your father. He is the lion of monks now, but he is your father. You have a right for your paternal property. Ask him your paternal property. Then Rahul goes and then accosts Buddha, holds his cloth, and then said, Father, give me the property that you owe me. Then Buddha turned to his assistant, Ananda. Ananda, give him my property. Then Ananda took out a Gerua cloth, a saffron cloth, put it on Rahul, and Rahul became a monk. Then afterwards, Yashodhara herself comes and salutes Buddha. You make me also a nun. No women can enter into the order. In the meanwhile, his own foster mother, Kisa Gautami, comes there. She comes and salutes him. Buddha, you remember? I made you a man from your 6th month until you became a young man and left the kingdom. So I was the mother for you. I want sannyas diksha from you. I want to be a nun under you. You must ordain me as a nun. Buddha said, no women can enter this order. Then Ananda comes and pleads, Sir, how can you say your mother? If you are today alive as a Buddha, it is because of her grace. If she had not brought you up, what would you be? So you must oblige at least this one lady. Then Buddha just gives up his decision not to allow women. He first yields to Ananda's request. All right, Ananda, you are pleading for her. I will allow her to enter into my order. So she is the first nun of the Buddha's order. Then immediately he said, Ananda, you do not know what you have done. I was thinking that this monastic order started by me would go for a long time. Now these women also have entered into this. Its life will be half. So anyway, you have entreated me, I have obeyed. So she later became a nun. So she was the first nun to be ordained. Then immediately after that Yashodhara comes. So now you have allowed her, you allow me also. She also become a nun. So many women came, many men came, thousands and thousands, both ordinary people and extraordinary people, all came. They accepted the new religion of Buddha. Then his disciples, each one of them became shining examples of Buddha's life. Then one Kashyapa, that Kashyapa was his disciple. This fellow manifested so much of miraculous powers. One day he was walking in the street. So some competition was going on. They had put one jeweled vessel at the top, say some 15 feet high, on a post. If anybody without climbing this post, they should take away this ornamented gold vessel from there. So we will consider him as a great person. How can anybody 15 feet high? No man will be more than 7 feet or 7.5 feet. How can he take it out from there? Everybody was a failure. Then this Kashyapa was going, I will take it out. Just extended his hand through yogic power, took it out. Then, everybody hailed, oh, here is a great man having so many miraculous powers. But when he came back with the jeweled vessel to Buddha, Buddha smashed it on the ground. All the jewels fell on the ground. He said, Kaundinya, Kashyapa, what did you do? Never exercise miraculous powers. It has nothing to do with spirituality. No miraculous powers. Hard way of subduing your senses and going to enlightenment. This is the path. Then, from that time onward, all the disciples became very alert. Then Upagupta. This Upagupta's story is a very long story. I will not go into that one. One of the most moving stories in Buddhist analogy. Vasavadatta was one of the beauty queen of Kashi. So this Upagupta, a young man, shining with spiritual knowledge, pure as purity itself, he was going in the street. This Vasavadatta, she felt very much for him. She wanted to have him as her paramour. She invited him. Oh, Upagupta, please come to my palace, come to my palace. Then Upagupta looked at her. Mother, time has not yet come to you. I will come at the right time. Every day she would invite him. But he would say, time has not yet come for me to come to you. I will come to you at the right time. So she was waiting for the time to come. Someday he will come. So one day, her other paramours who used to come to her, they quarreled with one another. Because of their jealousy, they all came together. One fellow cut off her nose, one fellow cut off her ears, one fellow cut off both her hands, another fellow came and cut off both her legs. She was maimed completely, with bleeding all over her body, almost half dead. She was thrown into the street before her palace. All ran away. At that time, Upagupta came. Nobody was going near her because all princes have brought her to the stage. They were afraid of the princess. So they all ran. Everybody was afraid. Nobody to nurse her also. Then this young Swami, young monk came, dressed her and gave her something to drink. Then he said, Mother, this is the time I have come. You require me. At that time you had hundreds of people to come to you. This is the time when nobody is coming to you. I am here for you. I will serve you. He serves her till the end, until she gives up her life. And she is taken to the cremation ground. She is cremated. Buddha himself goes to see the cremation and advises everyone. See what beauty Vasavadatta was, what charming powers she had, how many princes were behind her. End is only this. This is human life. Become aware. He warned all the other disciples, comes away from that cremation ground. So like that, his disciples also became very great. Then the last days of Buddha, very, very wonderful. Then one day, Ananda goes to Buddha and then says, Buddha is nearing 80 years of his age. Then Ananda, who had served him all his life, he did not care to listen to Buddha's teachings. All were listening. They all became enlightened people. But Ananda was interested only in serving Buddha from morning till evening. So he had no time to listen to the teachings of Buddha. So he remained, so to say, ignorant as far as the philosophy of the Buddhism was concerned. So Ananda goes and says, Sir, I am not at all learned in the philosophy of what you have taught, because I have been serving you. Now you are about to leave the world and go. What will I do if people, after you leave this world, accuse you for not teaching me anything and leaving me ignorant? They may accuse you. How can I bear that accuse? Then Buddha told him, Don't worry, Ananda. Now itself you will become illumined. He blessed him. By one touch of Buddha, he became an illumined soul. He became one of the topmost knowers of Nirvana by the grace of Buddha. Then Buddha proceeds further. They come to a village where there was a low caste man called Chunda. So he invites Buddha to take food in his house. And it was a very simple food. He had prepared along with other delicacies one mushroom curry. And mushrooms can be very poisonous also. He did not know. That day he had brought that poisonous mushroom. So he fed it to Buddha. Buddha ate that. After eating the whole thing, he called Chunda. Chunda, you have given me the last meal of my life. You have released me from this body. I am going to enter into Buddhahood today. Never more to come as a human being again. Only as a God I will come. As a Buddha I will come. So he blessed Chunda. Then he walks. After eating that one, he had very loose motions. became very weak. Even then he walked to the next big place called Kushinara. So there, tired on the way, he went to a muddy water. As soon as he went near that, all the mud disappeared. It became like a beautiful spring. So he drank water from that. Then he lies down on his right side under a tree and gives up his body. So his body is given up. So later on, when people, all the kings were informed, several kings rushed. So they all, after all, they cremated him. Then the relics of him were distributed among all the states. His relics were taken. Each one built a big pagoda at the temple. Then it was all worshipped there. Then Buddhism started spreading. So Buddha's last teachings were, he who obeys dharma is always nearer to me. He will enjoy the bliss of Buddha. Let the truth and the rules of the order be your guide. You may abolish any minor rules. He was very liberal. Buddha said to Ananda, ask if you have any doubts. So there were 500 disciples of him. Any one of you have any doubt about dharma, you ask me. All of them said, no sir, we have no doubts at all. 500 illumined souls he had already made. Then at last Buddha said, truth will remain forever. Work out your own salvation with diligence. Buddha is a state should be attained by everyone. Buddha is not for only one. Every one of you can attain to Buddhahood. So then, conclusions. So what is the conclusion we draw from the Buddha's life? Buddha gave the world the first missionary religion, but they were missionaries of love, peace and goodwill. They never used any violence against anybody to convert them. Buddha gave his spiritual knowledge to all, irrespective of class, caste or gender. The whole Bharatvarsha, India, became a dynamo of spirituality. Buddhism conquered spiritually two-thirds of the then cultured world, from Tashkent to Afghanistan to Peking and Tokyo in the east. Hence Swami Vivekananda said, spiritual India will be the most powerful India. India will conquer the world again, Swamiji said, because the religion that Sri Ramakrishna gave is like exactly the simplest religion as Buddha gave. When Buddha gave the simplest religion, we could conquer two-thirds of the world. So again Swami Vivekananda said, Sri Ramakrishna has given the simplest religion and Buddha gave a Sangha. Sri Ramakrishna has given a Sangha. And Buddha gave new religion, simplified religion. Sri Ramakrishna gave a simplified religion. And Buddha himself was the personification of the religion he gave. Sri Ramakrishna was the personification of what Vedanta means, what Vedas mean. So we have got all the three ingredients that during Buddhism we got. After Buddha, we had a Buddha, we had a Dharma, we had a Sangha. Here after Sri Ramakrishna, we have got the incarnate of Ramakrishna himself, we have got the Ramakrishna Sangha, we have got the Ramakrishna Dharma, the latest version of Vedanta. All the three ingredients which brought a great revolution in the whole world, spirituality at that time, are again here. Swamiji refers to this. Same portents are here. Therefore, we can expect a great revolution as happened in the case of Buddhism. Whole world became Buddhist and enjoyed the joy and peace. Again the world is going to enjoy same thing through Vedanta of Sri Ramakrishna. That is the conclusion we come. So that was the great life of Buddha. Buddha is considered as the 10th avatar of Hinduism. Hinduism had 10 avatars. So Buddha became one of the 10 avatars. So Sri Ramakrishna refers in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Buddha was an avatar himself. And what is Buddha? Buddha is when the buddhi gets merged in God. So there is no say, no one can describe what God is. Buddha could not describe what nirvana was. People asked him, "Sir, is there Atman?" Then he said, "Have I said that there is Atman?" Then another disciple said, "Then there is no Atman." "Have I said there is no Atman?" He neither said Atman is, he neither said that Atman is not. Because about Atman you cannot understand, you have to realize. So realize, I have given you the path. So the main thing in religion is to realize the truths of religion. That was what Buddha gave. That is what Ramakrishna today gives us. That is what the modern India is after. So let us pray to Sri Ramakrishna. Let us pray to Bhagavan Buddha so that India can rise again with her spiritual banner to conquer the world. Niranjanam nityamanantarupam bhaktanukampaadhrita-vigraham vai Ishavataram parameshamidhyam tam Ramakrishnam shirasa namamaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Buddhaya.